It's been just 3 days since the swearing in of the Modi Sarkar 3.0, and right after that, just in these last 3 days, there have been as many as 3 attacks in Jammu and Kashmir. First in Riyasi, then in Kathua, and one in Doda. Both civilians as well as army personnel have been targeted in these series of attacks. It is perhaps the clearest sign yet from Pakistan that it is going to keep using these terror proxies to try and rattle the Modi government 3.0. The terrorists have also changed tack. Now, most of these attacks are not taking place in the Kashmir Valley. They've now shifted southwards and westwards in the Jammu, Rajouri and Poonch areas. So, the question that beckons, and this is perhaps the first big challenge of the Modi 3.0 government, and that is, how should India respond and be seen as responding to this grave provocation?
जैसे मोदी जी ने कहा कि जीरो टॉलरेंस टुवर्ड्स टेररिज्म, इसी नियम का पालन करते हुए आगे की कार्रवाई भी निर्धारित की जाएगी.
Problem with neighbor will not be solved by military action. Unless we talk to our neighbors, we will not be able to solve the problem that we have here.
डॉक्टर फारूक अब्दुल्ला साहब को आतंकवादियों के प्रति जो वो सहानुभूति जता रहे हैं वो बंद करना चाहिए और आतंकवादियों के खिलाफ कड़ी कार्रवाई हो, इसका समर्थन करना चाहिए.
फारूक अब्दुल्ला ने आज फिर पाकिस्तान की हिमायत की है, लेकिन मुझे लगता है कि जिम्मेदार व्यक्ति को जो चीफ मिनिस्टर रहा है इस प्रकार की बयानबाजी नहीं करनी चाहिए.
We're getting breaking news at the top of brass tacks. There's been a fresh exchange of fire between terrorists and security forces in Doda district. This is the second incident that's happening in Doda just in the last 24 hours. There's been firing in what is the Bhalesa area in Doda. One policeman, we're given to understand, has been injured in the exchange. So that makes it 4 attacks just in the last 3 days or so in Doda, Kathua, Riyasi, and of course, like I said, 2 attacks now in Doda in the last 24 hours. Ishan Vani is now joining us with more details on this. Ishan, do we have any more fresh inputs on this latest attack? How far out is it from the previous attack that happened in Doda?
Zaka, it's not so far, and it's believed that the same group which attacked security force personnel yesterday, and there was an intense exchange of gunfire that took place yesterday for at least 1 hour, that this could be the same group which is trapped in the top of that particular mountain range, and police's special operation group and Indian Army's unit have been trying to track them down throughout the day. And this could possibly be the same group which was responsible for attacking security forces yesterday, because there has been a renewed, strategy that the forces have been trying to follow in the mountainous areas of Kashmir Valley, particularly in Jammu as well. So according to that strategy, these forces are trying to, ensure that all the tracks and all those exits from where they could escape are first, located, and then they go about doing an encounter and an operation. That seems to be precisely the case where now this operation is underway. Since it's at the night time and there is very little visibility, so the forces will try to prevent any escape routes and cut off the escape routes for these militants and try to carry out these counter attack on them. But one has to see that how long does it take for the forces to conclude this operation. But yes, there's been a fresh exchange of gunfire. We are told that one special police officer has been injured in the exchange of gunfire, where the forces are trying to lay a dense cordon in this particular area to ensure that no terrorists try to escape from the vicinity.
All right, Ishan, we'll leave it at that. Thank you very much. Ishan Vani, our correspondent there in Srinagar, giving us the details of this latest attack that's happened in Doda. So if you were to take that, that would be the 4th attack in the last 3 days. But let's bring you up to speed with what has been a rather bloody last 3 days in Jammu and Kashmir, particularly in the Jammu region. On the 9th of June, there was an attack in Riyasi, which is, of course, in the Jammu region, which is far away from Srinagar, from the Kashmir Valley. Then the following 2 days, which is the 11th of June, you have an attack in Doda as well as an attack in Kathua. The first attack that happened in Riyasi was targeting pilgrims who were returning from a temple in Shivpuri and going to another temple in Kathua. Hindu pilgrims who were targeted. But the two attacks in Doda, the first one on the 11th of June and the second that one happened in Kathua. The Kathua one, 2 terrorists and a CRPF jawan were killed. It's an ongoing security operation. The other one that happened in Doda, 6 troops have been injured in the attack that happened on an army post. And the latest one that's happened in Doda, the one that's currently underway, 1 police personnel is said to be injured. So 3 attacks, all of which have happened in the Jammu, Rajouri, Poonch, that part, not so much in Kashmir Valley. Meanwhile, some parties, political parties, have been batting for talks. Farooq Abdullah, the patron of the National Conference, has said that you cannot solve a problem like terrorism just militarily. You have to, at the end of the day, talk to Pakistan. But let's bring you up to speed with how Pakistan, since the 1990s, has been using talks and simply using that as a cover to try and get back at India through these terror proxies. Back in February of 1999, the famous Lahore bus diplomacy, Prime Minister Vajpayee back then, he had gone to Lahore. This was a peace overture from India. The response was that in May of that year, Pakistan launched the Kargil War, which took a good 3 months for India to finally neutralize. In July of 2001, the famous Agra summit, when President Musharraf, the head of Pakistan at that time, attended the Agra Peace Summit. Again, Vajpayee was the Prime Minister. In October of that year, in Kashmir, at the Jammu and Kashmir Assembly, more than 24 people were killed in a car bombing attack. And that was followed up in December of 2001 with the now infamous Parliament attack, in which at least 9 people died. In October of 2008, India and Pakistan opened a trade route at the line of control. This was, of course, taking off from the entente that was found at Sharm el-Sheikh and subsequently in other places as well. In November of that year, India saw the worst terror attack on its soil. 174 people were killed in the Mumbai terror attack. Mr. Modi, after he came to office in July of 2015, Mr. Modi and Nawaz Sharif, who was Prime Minister of Pakistan at that time, they met in Ufa at the sidelines of the SCO summit. In December, India had proposed a comprehensive dialogue. Then in 2016, on the 1st of January, 7 soldiers were killed in the Pathankot Air Base attack. Also, that same year, in 2016, in September of that year, in Uri, 17 soldiers were killed. India, of course, responded with what is now called, famously, the first surgical strikes. In September of 2018, India accepted the foreign ministers' meeting proposal between India and Pakistan. In February of 2019, just a few weeks before the Lok Sabha election of 2019, 40 CRPF personnel were killed in Pulwama, again in one of the most dreaded terror attacks in the Kashmir Valley. So how does India respond to this rather changed tactic by the terrorists? They're not targeting Kashmir as much as they're targeting the Jammu region, particularly in the last year and a half. Ajay Alok is national spokesperson of the BJP. Adil Singh Boparai is a spokesperson of the Congress Party. SP Vaid, former DGP of Jammu and Kashmir. Lieutenant General Satish Dua is former GOC of the 15 Corps. Muzaffar Iqbal Khan is a senior leader of the National Conference. Ajay Alok, let me start with you first. Just in the last 3 days, Riyasi, 9 killed, Kathua, 1 killed, Doda, 6 police personnel injured. All of this has happened just in the last 3 days since the new Modi 3.0 government has been put into office. How is the government of India going to respond to this?
Well, the government of India's response is very clear. The security forces have been instructed to just clean up the mess, and we'll clean up the mess. See, you have to take terrorism into account that this is not merely terrorism for the basis of any kind of a freedom movement or such. It's a business. It's actually a business in Jammu Kashmir Valley, and it's a business oriented, as far as India is concerned, it's oriented to 3 families and rest sitting in the POK and in the Pakistan. It's a purely business for them. With the new government swearing in, and if you see the statistics, in 2023, the relatively attacks have gone remarkably down. Almost, if I remember correctly, it's around 229 or 219 compared to the previous year, because of the activism of the security force and their tight vigil. So it's kind of breaking their back. And with this new government and with the election going so smoothly, these terrorists are rattled that what will happen to the business. So these kind of, the frequency has increased. But we are not worried at all because our security forces are apt enough to tackle them, and we will definitely get into control, and we'll try and wipe out terrorism as effectively what we are doing for the last 10 years.
Adil Singh Boparai, the BJP's contention is that these are desperate elements trying to derail the democratic process and the election of the new government. It's all gone so far very smoothly, and therefore Pakistan is finding reason enough to disrupt this level of normalcy in India, and that's why they're doing this. Ajay Alok's point being that we shouldn't pay much heed to it. Of course, go ahead and fully crush it, but at the same time, do not sound alarmist like Farooq Abdullah is, who's advocating now for talks with Pakistan.
Well, good evening, Zaka. At the outset, we extend our deepest condolences to the bereaved families. We stand with them in this moment of grief, and we are united. Let me reiterate this. Every Indian is united in this fight against terror. There cannot be any two ways about this. Having said this, what we're noticing is that there's an increased activity of cross-border terrorism in the Jammu region. These were districts which were previously very peaceful or relatively calm. This is something which is evolving, and we do sincerely expect that the government of India comes up with a coherent strategy to deal with this. And I have great respect for my friend Mr. Ajay Alok, and this is not a moment where I think any person should indulge in any kind of politicking. But having said this, I think the political executive of the day must realize that chest thumping and sloganeering cannot be an answer to deal with terrorism. I have some baffling statistics before me. Over the past 10 years, there have been 2,262 terror attacks in GNK alone, in which 363 civilians and 596 of our bravehearts have been martyred. These are very, very baffling statistics. And we understand, the Congress party understands the pain of terrorism. Our party leaders themselves have been victims of terrorism. So therefore, we urge the government of the day, there is no scope for showing any kind of indulgence to terrorism. Take their back. We stand with our brave forces, but it is important to develop a coherent strategy. At a time like this, where there have been attacks almost on a daily basis, Dhaka, and I say this with responsibility, was it not warranted of the Prime Minister to express remorse, sympathy, and an assurance to the bereaved family?
So let me ask Mr. Vaid, as former DGP of Jammu and Kashmir. Mr. Vaid, the contention by the opposition is that there is clearly something happening here. The number of attacks in Kashmir have come down. The attacks in Jammu, Rajouri, Poonch, that belt has been going up for the last year or so. Clearly, the government needs to get to the root cause of it and curtail that. Either the terrorists have changed their tactic because it's getting harder and harder in the Kashmir Valley to have these attacks, and therefore are now looking for newer pastures. And if that's the case, then the government of India needs to be aware of it and be proactively responsive to this. That's the contention of the Congress party. My question to you is, A, why are they changing this tactic? And if it is a change of tactic, then how should the government of India, the Indian forces, police, army, etc., how should they respond?
Zaka, after having the situation in Kashmir drastically improving, you see the tactics of attacking Jammu region, focusing on Jammu region for last 2 years, is with their purpose, a well-established policy of focusing on Jammu region, because last 15 years Jammu region was comparatively peaceful, so some forces have been withdrawn from here. It is largely a hilly belt and with very less connectivity as compared to Kashmir Valley. Kashmir Valley is plain area. Jammu is largely hilly and rugged terrain with thick forest. So there is a concerted move to focus on Jammu so that forces are moved from Kashmir Valley to Jammu region, and the pressure is eased in Kashmir. So that is actually the strategy of the establishment across to focus on Jammu region. And you are seeing first they tried Rajouri Poonch. Last one and a half year, we have seen this situation in Rajouri Poonch. In fact, one of that group was probably responsible for attack in Riyasi on the Yatris on 9th, what we saw. Regarding incident in Kathua, I think fresh bit of infiltration. These two terrorists have been neutralized in Kathua last night. And what you are seeing in Doda, is, about 2 or 3 weeks back, a group had managed to infiltrate from international border. It had actually crossed from Jammu to Basantgarh area of Udhampur district, where it had a encounter with the VDC. One VDC member got martyred.
Okay.
Then very same group actually got into in two groups. One went towards Bhadrawa area, and the other went to the hills of Kathua. The group which had gone to Bhadrawa area is actually the group which got contact yesterday with the attack the army and police picket, where 5 or 6 jawans were injured.
Okay.
Even today's incident with what you are saying, Balesa and Shaktidal are not very far off. I think the very same group could be responsible for that.
Okay,
now,
I do want to go to Mr. Muzaffar Iqbal Khan of the National Conference. Sir, you know, what your party leader, your party patron, Mr. Farooq Abdullah, is advocating is something that has been tried and tested. He says there's no fully military solution to this. You have to talk to Pakistan. I just outlined at the beginning of the program how in '99 with Lahore diplomacy, we got the Kargil war. In 2001 with the Agra Peace Summit, we got the Parliament attack and the Jammu and Kashmir Assembly attack. In 2008, when India and Pakistan opened a trade route at the LOC, we got Mumbai 2611. The list is almost endless. Yet, the National Conference, the PDP, is not seeing the writing on the wall, and that is, every time you open a channel to Pakistan, you are responded with a terror attack.
Zaka, the chronology which you have given include also the jackboot policy we have adopted for last 10 years. But it could not bear any fruit. You could not eradicate the militancy or terrorism related incident. And for last many years, we are hearing the voices, misleading voices, that we have eradicated from Jammu and Kashmir one ideology particularly. And we have seen in Baramulla what happened. It is not an eradication of the ideology. Secondly, I am not responding to one particular party spokesperson that who are the beneficiary. We are the worst sufferer. You have just counted while giving an account of the past incidents. Who were martyred in that attack which took place in Assembly of Jammu and Kashmir? National Conference people. And the National Conference is the party which has bear the burden of this militancy, this terrorism. We have sacrificed our ministers, our workers, everywhere. And still, the people have cheek to say that this party is benefited out of it. Anyhow, this politics, I don't want to involve or indulge in this
Muzaffar
type
Iqbal
of
Khan,
politics.
isn't it worrying to you, sir? Isn't it worrying to you?
I'm coming to.
No. I think your party leader, Mr. Omar Abdullah, also tweeted about this. He lost an election. A mainstream politician from a mainstream political party in Kashmir lost an election to a separatist who will now be an elected member of parliament. Have you not ceded ground to these radical elements? And at some level, shouldn't the mainstream parties of Kashmir, your party included, sort of contemplate this? Why was that space conceded to these separatist voices in the first place? It can't all just be because the government in Delhi is hostile to you. All right, we just lost Mr. Khan. We'll try and get back to Mr. Khan as and when that line is established. But let me ask General Dua this. You know, this is the contention of mainstream political parties, the likes of the National Conference, you saw Umar Abdullah's tweet a few days ago, PDP, etc., is with this whole, as they put it, the jackboot policy after the abrogation of Article 370, you have simply shut off any window, any avenue, any outlet where mainstream politics, mainstream political parties can thrive. Instead, what you have is the growing number of these radicals, these separatist elements. Now one of them will be sitting in the 18th Lok Sabha.
Zaka, what's happened over the last 5 years is that after abrogation of Article 370, the government has tried to usher in development and growth and reduce the levels of violence. We are certainly seeing the manifestations of that. There is no violence spilling on the streets. There is no stone pelting. Schools are running. Tourists are coming, and all that things happening. I'm not trying to say that alienation has been eradicated, but the fact of the matter also remains that there are a lot of people who are participating in or are beneficiary of the growth and development that is taking place. So you see, and of course, on the other hand, the security forces have sewn up the place very tight, whether it is on the LOC or in the hinterland in Kashmir. So you have seen a shift. The terrorists have started to shift their tactics, have started to shift to the Pir Panjal. If you remember before, in the month of September, we had a high-profile terror incident, but that was in the area of Verinag, again on the Pir Panjal ranges, on the north face of Pir Panjal ranges. Thereafter, Rajouri Punch has been activated over a period of time. Mr. Vaid spoke about that in detail. Now, what is happening essentially? They are changing tack because since quiet is coming in the valley, at least overtly. So to instill that fear in the mind of people, elections go off very peacefully. They want to instill fear in the minds of people. Now, we are looking at two major events that are coming up now in the next couple of months. We have the Amarnath Yatra that's coming up, and thereafter the elections, which are mandated to be held before the state elections, before 30th of September. Now, here is the time that the terrorists have started to, suitably so, LET spokesperson has said, after this Riyasi attack, that this is a renewed terror attack or worse to that effect. So they are saying that they want to renew that that kind of instilling of terror in the minds of people as it was earlier. So that's an admission of things going towards normalcy in the Kashmir Valley. To your question about the alienation, I do concede. It is not as if that alienation has totally been rooted out, but the manifestations of it, the violence levels, and I mean the puns, the hartals, the markets closing, everything, at least there we are seeing more peace and quiet.
Let me ask Ajay Alok this. You have those two big events coming up, the Amarnath Yatra, which will start in the next few days, and then you have state assembly elections, which, as the Supreme Court has directed, have to be concluded before the 30th of September. The question is, if you're seeing this amp up of terror attacks just 3 days into the new Modi government tenure, how are you preparing yourself for both of these significant events, which, of course, carry their own inherent security risks?
See, Zaka, you have to take in 2-3 things into account. Like what my NC spokesperson said, that we will have to talk, it cannot be eradicated. We are not here for eradication of terrorism. We are here for eradication of terrorism from Jammu and Kashmir. Now, why they have shifted to Jammu? This is also very significant, because now these terrorists want to terrorize Hindu population. There is a communal angle attached to it. They want to create unrest. When the unrest will be created and the election cannot be conducted, that will give a bad name to the Modi government and to India. And they can highlight the Kashmir and Jammu and Kashmir issue all over globally. And people like Farooq Abdullah, when they resent their voice that yes, we should have a dialogue with Pakistan, we cannot do this, there is a threat to Amarnath Yatra, this is nothing but adding confusion. If you are in a main political frame of this country, if you are a main political party of this country, if you are thinking that Kashmir is an integral part of India, then you cannot think of talking to Pakistan on how to settle terrorism in India. This is our problem, we have to solve it. But if you are giving voice to terrorism, that no, the solution has to come by talks and talks, sorry. We have been talking for the last 70 years with no results. Now we are seeing results post abrogation of Article 370. What kind of development and what kind of sheer people participation is there? I mean, look at the voting turnout in Kashmir. You could see the lines, and people are waiting for assembly election. And that's why I'm saying that to break the morale, these terrorists are doing all these things, but it's not going to happen.
Okay. Let me ask Muzaffar Iqbal Khan, whose line is back, whose line is back with us. Mr. Khan, Mr. Ajay Alok's contention is two things. One, this is being used to target the upcoming elections because these elements, these terrorists don't want to see peaceful elections, elections in which, for example, like we saw in the Lok Sabha elections, the voter turnout has gone up significantly in many parts of Kashmir. And number two, this is also an attempt, as he contends, to shift the attacks from Kashmir for whatever reason. You could call it, enhanced security, surveillance there, or, a changed situation on the ground after the abrogation of Article 370, the ring fencing, whatever it is. But they now want to move away from the Kashmir Valley and target Hindus in Jammu. How do you respond to that?
Maybe because I do not know. Yes, there is a change in the modus operandi of these subversive activities. There is no doubt in it. For last 1.5 years, or rather last 2 years, we have been witnessing here the bloody attacks in Poonch, Rajouri. One very inhuman attack, I can say it, the worst of its kind, in Dera Ki Gali, where they have mutilated certain our martyrs. That was very heart-wrenching. There is no doubt in it. I do not know what maybe their intention. Maybe they have an intention to create a communal wedge here, or they want to target Hindu community. That may be one of the reasons for shifting from Kashmir to Jammu. I cannot say about it because I am not privy to all these developments, because these are the security agencies who can tell.
Okay.
Another argument which has been raised by one of my colleagues, panelist here, that Farooq Abdullah is saying this. Either tell us that your jackpot policy has any result-oriented shift in Jammu and Kashmir. It goes without saying that this large-scale participation in parliamentary election is not related to Article 370 abrogation. Rather, it was an anger against the central government. That is why the central government sponsoring party, that party which has abrogated Article 370 unconstitutionally, it has been voted out. All those who were supported by the BJP, they got their deposit forfeited everywhere in all.
No, but Mr. Khan, how do you explain, Mr. Khan, very simple question. In 3 constituencies in Kashmir, in one, you have Engineer Rashid, who's a separatist elected, and he defeated the leader of your party, Mr. Umar Abdullah. In the other 2 constituencies, you have your party candidates defeating, much bigger names, and your party candidates winning. So how have you drawn the conclusion that A, this was a vote against Article 370, or the parties that supported Article 370?
Definitely, BJP was supporting either PC in Baramulla, then in Srinagar Central seat, they were supporting Buhari's candidate. In South Kashmir and Rajouri Poonch seat, they were supporting again Altaf Buhari. All the 3 constituencies, what we have seen, definitely they owe an explanation to this, that how a separatist ideology.
No, but the person with the separatist ideology defeated your leader, Mr. Abdullah.
Definitely.
So isn't that also a reflection about the failed ideology espoused by your leader?
I agree with it that we lost the election in Baramulla. But more onerous question is on the establishment. They're saying that we have eradicated this philosophy, the ideology.
Okay.
They owe. Second. I want to just respond to one query that Farooq Abdullah has said that you talk.
Yes.
We are continuously talking with China, which has illegally occupied not only one area, but a lot of huge area. Gulwan Valley is with them. We're talking with them or not?
Okay.
Or can we deny that we have stopped talking with them?
So
I agree. I am with you. Either you stop this killing, innocent killing, you stop this by using any method. It is for them.
I'll ask General Dua to respond to that, because with China, it's an army-to-army talk. I think there have been 20 rounds of talks or something. The situation has still not been resolved. So, General Dua, please answer the question that Mr. Iqbal has asked. If you can talk to China, why can't you talk to Pakistan? It's a legitimate question.
Right. With our mechanism with China is decades old. We have something called BPMs, Border Personnel Meeting. They are at different levels, varying levels. And as of last, when I say levels, they're different ranks and size of delegation. But as of last 4 years, since we've had this the issue at Galwan and thereafter in Eastern Ladakh, the level has been raised, rightly so, because we have bigger issues to deal with. We have even incorporated a representative of External Affairs Ministry into the talks. So that's a regular mechanism which has helped India and China resolve our problems. Despite the bloody fight at Galwan, we haven't actually exchanged a shot in anger. We haven't actually fired. So it has paid some dividends. Whereas the talks with on the NOC front against infiltrators, when India says that we will not talk unless Pakistan shows a serious intent about winding down terror or stopping support to terror. Now, that is not in the same league as our talks with China. There's a very clear difference. This is at a political level.
Okay, let me ask Adil Boparai. The contention by the BJP is that since the abrogation of Article 370, look at the numbers. In 2018, just before the abrogation of Article 370, the number of terror incidents was 228. In 2023, it is down to 44. Encounters, in 2018, it was 189. In 2023, it's down to 48. Civilians killed, in 2018, it was 55. In 2023, it was just 13. Security personnel killed, it was 91 in 2018 and 26 in 2023. This, the BJP and the NDA government, they contend that this is a direct result of the abrogation of Article 370. There's been a reduction in the number of terrorist attacks, in the number of encounters, in the number of civilians, as well as security personnel killed.
Well, Zaka, a few things which all of us have to keep in mind. Firstly, the BJP has been in power at the center for 10 years and has been ruling the state of J&K through the Lieutenant Governor for the past 5 years. So therefore, the accountability rests with the BJP. The accountability does not rest with Mr. Farooq Abdullah or the PDP or any other opposition party. It is the government of the day which has to be held accountable, point number one. Point number two, and I'll tell you, this is where the fundamental problem is. This government is refusing to carry out an honest diagnosis. This is the problem in Manipur and this is the problem in J&K. Till such time that you do not acknowledge that there is a problem, that your security strategy is not working for whatever reasons. Jammu areas and areas around Poonch and Rajouri were previously relatively calm. Today, new frontiers have been opened up by cross-border terrorists. This is a cause of concern. Whatever may be the motivation, the question is, do we have a coherent strategy to deal with this? And it is also a matter of record, Zaka, that over the past 10 years, we've had attacks at multiple security installations. Whether it was Pathankot, Gurdaspur, Sunjwan, whether it was the CRPF camps. There have been loss of lives, brave hearts have been lost. We've lost brave hearts in the line of duty. We've lost civilians. I think the most recent terror attack is heart-wrenching. We've lost young children to terrorists. And the government continues to pat its back. This is the problem.
Okay, I'll give Ved Saab the final word. Mr. Ved, you've been in government, you've been DGP. What is the one thing? Adil Boparai and the Congress are saying this government is not even doing the diagnosis right. They're not even identifying what the problem is. They don't even know why the terrorists are moving from Kashmir to Jammu. Leave alone, tackling that problem, even the diagnosis is wrong. How do you respond to that? What is wrong with the diagnosis? Is the diagnosis wrong? And how do you respond to this change of tactic?
Jaga, I don't think the diagnosis is wrong. I think the change in situation, I was seeing your statistics on the screen.
Yeah.
Itself shows how things have changed in Kashmir. But we must understand we have an enemy across which would not leave 35 years hard work, money and effort so easily. So it will try all tactics to continue prop up terrorism. If it fails in Kashmir, it will try here in Jammu region. And as far as Dr. Farooq Abdullah's proposal that we must talk to Pakistan, my question is, who do you talk to in Pakistan? No Prime Minister of Pakistan controls the terror calibration, which actually happens from Rawalpindi, not from Islamabad. Who do you talk to? And if these very leaders, I have all the regards for Dr. Farooq Abdullah and Mehbooba Mufti. I have worked with both of them.
Okay.
If they can go on behalf of Pakistan, I'll request Prime Minister to depute both of them to Pakistan. Let them talk to the Rawalpindi people. If somebody in Rawalpindi assures that India's policy that terror and talks cannot go on, we will stop the terror. India will next day will talk to Pakistan.
Start the talks. Okay, I think that's a fair point. Let's wrap up with that. It's a fair point that Mr. Vaid asked. Who do you talk to in Pakistan? Because the civilian government clearly is not in control. The army has a vested interest in keeping this terror tap on. So then, which is the agency that you talk to? We'll leave it at that. Let's see how this story develops further.